came across again a video by Jim Carey. And I'm a big Jim Carey fan, as are you. You know, we followed his career. We've watched him morph and change from, an amazing actor to an amazing artist. And it really is quite remarkable. But in this particular speech that I saw him do, I think it was part of a speech he did to a university. And it's kind of, I think it's been pieced together in this particular video, but there was a segment in it that really landed for me. So what I want to do is I transcribed it. It's from Jim Carrey. It's part of his speech, and I transcribed it, but there was part of it that really landed for me in an interesting way. And what I want to do is just read it. It's maybe a minute or a minute and a half long. I'll do my best to read it and not trip over it. And then I'd like to kind of unpack it, because I think there's some really profound stuff in here that, for those who are maybe struggling with identity, or really coming to grips with who they are or who they are not, or feeling like there's more to them, this may be some really great food for thought. And I think that as we discuss it, there's some points in here that really landed for me that I'd like to revisit and share. So, we good with that?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm excited. I love this clip, and when you sent it to me this morning, it got me pretty grounded.
Okay, so here we go. He starts, "Now, fear is going to be a player in your life, but you get to decide how much you can spend your whole life imagining ghosts. How much are you going to do that? Worrying about the pathway to the future. But all there will be is what's happening here in the moment, and the decisions we make in this moment, which are based in either love or fear. So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. What we really want seems impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to expect, so we never dare to ask the universe for it. When I was about 28, after a decade as a professional comedian, I realized one night in LA that the purpose of my life had always been to free people from concern, just like my dad. The only one I hadn't freed was myself. And that's when my search for identity deepened. I wondered, who might I be without my fame? Who would I be if I said things that people didn't want to hear? Or if I defied their expectations of me? And that piece that whereafter lies somewhere beyond personality, beyond the perception of others, beyond invention in disguise, even beyond effort itself. You can join the game, fight the wars, play with form all you want. But to find real peace, you have to let the armor you need for acceptance go. It can make you invisible in this world. Don't let anything stand in the way of a light that shines through this form. Risk being seen in all your glory. Your job is not to figure out how it's going to happen for you, but to open the door in your head. And when the door opens in real life, just walk through it. And don't worry if you miss a cue, because there's always doors opening, and they keep opening. And when I say life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, I really don't know if that's true. I'm just making a conscious choice to perceive challenges as something beneficial so that I can deal with them in the most productive way. You'll come up with your own style. That's part of the funnel. You are ready and able to do beautiful things in this world. And after you walk through those doors today, you will only ever have two choices: love or fear. Choose love. And don't ever let fear turn you against your playful heart. What's happening right now inside everybody is they're going, who am I? There was a time when I was depressed. Yeah, I was depressed when I was trying to be the Wizard of Oz. But I know now that Oz is a character, and I think everybody deals with that. Everybody walks around and they go like, why am I depressed? At times, we all need deep rest. And it's because you're trying to be something for the world. You know, as soon as you let that go, better things happen. End part of speech.
Wow.
Now, I probably didn't do it nearly the justice Jim Carrey does, but it's his speech. And of course, he's got all the nuances and all the things that go with it. But I found it quite interesting and a little bit profound in his view and the way he expressed it. And so before I get into it, what did you take away? Where would you like to kind of unpack it?
Well, I think if we were more technologically advanced, we could have just played the video.
Yeah, I'm not that advanced.
But I'm really glad you read it because I think it gets in your cells differently when you read or write. And, hearing you say it now, this is the third or fourth time you said it. For me, it's what always comes back to, and what I really got from this is that I'd rather be hated for someone I'm not. No, I'd rather be hated for someone I am than loved for someone I'm not.
Mm,
I'd rather be hated for someone I am and standing alone in the light of my truth than being loved for someone I'm not, for an identity or a persona or a fake person that
that's
I'm
so
putting out in the world. And
that's
then
so
people
true.
fall in love with that, or they like it. They think they're in a relationship with that. They're
Mhm.
hanging out. And next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a big fat liar. That's not who I am. And all of a sudden you start unpacking and unfolding to who you really are. And people are like, I don't know who you are. I don't even like that person.
Mhm.
So anyway, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Sure, of course. There's a part of it where he goes, we make decisions in love or fear. And so many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. And it's interesting that as I'm working with a number of men in business and I discuss with them what they're doing on a kind of a what are the things that they get buried in, and what we start to realize is that we get caught in minutia, and we talk about not having time, yet we're buried in minutia, and being buried in minutia is just a way of playing small. It's a way to have an excuse for not doing more, taking action, being bigger, better, bolder. And it is underlying all of that is the fear disguised as practicality, that fear of going out there and actually doing more. It becomes an excuse. Now that's not all of it, that's just part of it, but it is what really keeps some people playing small because of the concern for what they think people will think of them. And I never get the quote right, but it is really is, uh, we aren't who what is it, we're not who we think we are. uh, we're who we think other people
No, I
think.
am not who I think I am.
Yeah, I'm not who I think I am.
I am not who you think I am.
Yeah,
I am who you think I am,
yeah.
or something like
Something,
that.
something along that line. It is. I'm going to bring it up again one time, and I'll get the quote exactly right. You can Google it, but it really is about the fear of judgment, the fear of what our friends, our family, our circle of support will actually think of us. And as we go on these journeys, there is no doubt about it. We see it with many. Is that as they come to do this body of work of self-discovery, of self-awareness, of growing, is they start to realize that they don't want to play small. They don't even maybe even like how they show up and do
Yeah.
things. But the challenge they face is that in order for your life to change, you have to change. That's it. There really is no other way. If you're not satisfied with life, if you'd like to be more and have more and do more, you have to change. You have to become the person that you want to be. And that will also sometimes throw people in your life off because they're hanging out with the person that plays small, that lives in fear,
And that serves them.
and that serves them. That's what many don't, that's a tough thing to get is,
Yeah.
you know, when people don't want you to grow and be bigger and make you wrong and be a dream killer, it's not that they want to kill your dreams. It's being who you are serves them. And that's that maybe sounds a little bit harsh, but it's not like people are consciously doing it. This is how, this is just operating system. So in order to grow, we have to love ourselves, and we have to, in fact, make decisions that we recognize that sometimes the fear that keeps us from playing full on to the degree we want to play is that fear of what others might think.
So, oh man, this we could go on and on and on about
Yeah.
this, but what really came up for me right now is when I started training as a performance coach, and back in the day, it was life coaching, it was business coaching, it was, it was months and months and years of training and online stuff. And now you can basically become a life coach in a weekend, and everybody's a life coach now. But back in the day, it was pretty intense, and I had to go through a lot of um, case studies and give free sessions to people, and a lot of people that I knew and my friends that were really thinking that I had a natural tendency and a natural gift for this would help me out, and I would do coaching sessions with them over lunch or whatever. And or I would automatically go into coach mode with
Mhm.
them. And what would happen over time is I started gaining confidence and gaining the clarity and gaining that understanding that I really am quite good at this, and I think I could do this for a living and make money doing it. And I remember saying to it was a girlfriend, I think, yeah, years ago, and we sat down and she goes right into her issues and asking me for help and what's my perspective. And I in like immediately go into coach mode, and I thought, oh, here I can help. But she was in request. I have to remember that. And then at the end of it, I said, you know what? I'm going to be charging for this down the road. I don't know what it's going to be, but I really appreciate that. And I said, "What do you think a fair exchange would be for today?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "What do you think? Like, do you wanna buy my lunch? Like, what do you think a fair exchange would be?" And I think that was the last time we went out for lunch.
Mhm.
Because what had happened was the imbalance got created. I'm, like, all of a sudden valuing myself, and all I was saying was, "Let's, like, pay me an hourly rate because I don't have one yet. I'm still practicing." But she hadn't asked me to go into coach mode. She just started dumping a bunch of her problems and asking for my perspective, but I had shifted.
Mhm.
I had shifted into in a way that's like, "Oh my gosh, I have to value myself." And in that moment, I remember saying, "Well, how about, I don't know, buy my lunch?" Or the other one was, "Why don't you leave the tip?" And people got quite offended because
Mhm.
that's who I was in their life for years and years and years. I was Stephanie with all the perspective and the ideas and the motivation and the help and the money, and I was this contributor and the giver, but that became so much a part of my identity that it became expected. And when I
Mhm.
started to break those patterns with people, it really threw a wrench into many of my relationships. And I did find that even asking for someone to buy my lunch for this exchange of an hour and a half of coaching, they couldn't wrap their minds of it because in their world, that was what my role was in the friendship,
Yeah. Well, that's what friends do.
right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there is always a place for that, but when it becomes expected and when it becomes what the relationship is actually about, then it breaks down because
Mhm.
there is that imbalance that starts to happen. Because let's face it, there's times where you want to talk about
Yeah,
you want to talk about
exactly.
what you got going on, and you would like some guidance too, but it never seemed to go that way.
No, it
But I want
didn't.
to keep unpacking this a little bit because there's an interesting perspective, that I think we could add to what Jim Carey said, because he said, "I wonder who I might be without my fame. Who would I be if I said things that people didn't want to hear?" Now, in the case of Jim Carrey, he's going, I wonder who might I be without my fame. But take that word fame out of there and say, I wonder who I might be if I wasn't in the role that I'm in, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, if I wasn't playing small, if I was actually attempting to play big, who would I be? And who would I be if I said things that people didn't want to hear? And why do I continue to play small? Because I'm so busy saying things that people, or I think people, want to hear. And so these are all the kind of, I guess, the underlying subconscious way that we operate. And I think this just opens up a really interesting perspective. And what would happen, he says, if I defied their expectations of me, and that piece that we're after lies somewhere beyond personality, beyond the perception of others, beyond excuse me, beyond invention in disguise, even beyond effort itself. So when you get to be that, when you get to show up, and what happens when you get to and start to step up, then it throws people off.